There we go. So today, well, first of all, let me just introduce the whole scenario. My name is Ian Dickerson. I'm the president of the Genesee Valley chapter of the BMW Club of America. And this is I believe, the fourth of our series of Zoom talks. And today we have Robin Shute joining us, who is really gone from uh, grassroots to professional. We seem to have a theme running in that three of our speakers now have all been associated with Pikes Peak. And Robin, I will just start screen sharing, has also, and that's the title of his talk, Ramblings About a Mountain. So we had James Clay, who talked about doing Pikes Peak in a naturally aspirated car. We had Charlie Greenhouse talk about his electric sports racer. And now Robin's going to come along and give us I guess this would be the triumvirate, or the trifecta. Maybe that's the better word. Now, if you get motivated by Robin's talk, let me just remind you, if you're not in England, you could run to there we go. All right, so one of our GVC high performance driving events. We've already had our event at the New York Safety Track. But if Robin inspires you, we have events coming up at Watkins Glen in June, August, and October. All right, and with that, let me introduce our speakers. So Robin, we were chatting beforehand. Now, my dad was this, my dad was that. Robin's dad was he the development driver for the Elise?
He was a program manager for Lotus Elise.
For the Lotus Elise. Like, if it wasn't like, Toyota Corolla, it was the Lotus Elise. So with that as a background, I guess it seems only natural that Robin should have gravitated towards motorsports of some sort. So people didn't come to listen to me. So what I'm going to do is turn it over. You're welcome to ask questions. I think we have a lot of people that are going to be catching the recording. So I apologize. We don't have quite as many people as normal, but we will make up for it with our enthusiasm.
Lovely. No, thank you.
Turn the screen over to you.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thank you, Ian. Brilliant. Okay. I'm just going to share my screen and presentation with you. Okay. Right. Can we see that?
Yep.
Yep. Lovely. Brilliant. Well, thank you for having me. My name's Robin. I'm currently out here in the UK at the moment. I was not planning on being in the UK this late in the year, and was hoping to be back over to the States in preparation for Pikes Peak. A little bit about me. I've actually been living out in the States, would have been for about 8 years. And the last year I found myself stranded in the UK with COVID. And I've been with race car, tinkering with the current Pikes Peak car over here in my parents' garage. So that's been my last year of my life. But professionally, I am an engineer and now also a racing driver as well. That's sort of turned into a career, and actually what I do on the engineering side really complements the racing side and vice versa. So I've found myself in a really lucky spot where I get to do what I love during the day, design race cars, and during the weekend as well, I also go and race them at an international level. So I feel very, very lucky and very privileged to be able to go and do that. What I've done is I've pulled together a presentation. There's no words in it. It's just photos and just key pieces to talk about. And essentially it goes through a bit of my racing career, how I got going. I had reasonably, would you say, humble beginnings? I don't know if I'd exactly state it like that. I've been lucky in that I did get a little bit of karting as a kid into me, and I've always been competing in some shape or form, whether that be actually alpine ski racing as well as a few other things. So I came back to motorsport in my early 20s. Actually, I was working at Tesla Motors in California. Was lucky enough to have a Corvette and would take that on a few track days. At that point, I realized I was really quite quick, and I took the opportunity basically. I don't know if you're familiar with the SCCA and the SCCA Run-Offs. That I'd run at the same track for a long, long time. And for the first time in, I think, 40 years or so, it came to the West Coast, to Laguna Seca. And I had a colleague come and tell me this was a big deal, and I wasn't really familiar about it. But once I learned a bit more, I sort of fancied I'd go at trying to win a class at it. So with that harebrained idea in mind, I set about figuring out a car to go and run and try and be very successful in that class at that one event. So it was the tactics of purchasing a race car, learn how to run it, learn how to drive it, and then go and do as much racing as I can as that one track to get really good at it, and then see how I do against the national best. So I went into a class called Formula Enterprise, which was actually a 2.3 litre 4-cylinder open wheel car, slicks and wings, actually quite a fast racing vehicle, especially for your first one. And I did this a little different to most people, being 20, how would I have been at the time? It was 2014, so it would have been 26. I was borrowing people's trucks, trailers, and working on this car out of my home garage to pull it together to go racing. And our first race was at Thunderhill in Northern California, and was very, very rainy that weekend, which is not characteristic for that part of the world. So it was myself and a friend called Robbie. You've seen a few of these photos, can be distinguished with the captain's hat, known as the captain. We went about running this race car and competing in SCCA for the first time. And not only were we winning our class, we were also in the wet challenging for the podium against P1 cars and Formula Atlantics at that point. So we turned a few heads in the paddock. You can see in the photo on the bottom left here, I'm in the under the pink umbrella and surrounded by 2 Formula Atlantics there. So that definitely turned some heads with 2 people who didn't really look like they knew what they were fully doing, but competing at the front even at that early stage. And that was a really successful year in racing for me. I did what I needed to do, qualified for the Run-Offs, and then competed there, and actually didn't quite win, but did get runners-up spot there, second overall, and the guy who had won it that year had also won it the previous 7. So I was the person who got the closest to winning in all those years. So pretty proud of that fact, and set out almost on that objective to win in your first year on that. And I was a little bit, was hoping that I would prove to myself that I wasn't going to win, and I could kind of give up on the motorsport dreams and ideas and accept how good I would be. But it turned out I was annoyingly good at it. So I decided to stick with it. So for the following year, I went for an even faster car. So we went from Formula Enterprise to what's called Formula Pro Mazda. It was a rotary engine vehicle, carbon tub. And then we actually had a really good West Coast series for these types of vehicles. Now, most of these cars, they're called Formula Pro Mazda, and mostly pro teams run them because they're quite complicated and tricky to figure out. But we were still doing the same thing with at this point, we'd got an enclosed trailer, but not much more equipment than that. And with my engineering background and what we were learning, having run the car with Robbie and another gentleman called Manny, we were able to, again, be quite competitive. It was a bit more of a learning curve with this car. We did blow up an engine, which you can see in that top left-hand photo there. That was an engine seizing at 120 mile an hour, which was exciting. Definitely destroyed a set of tires and a set of underpants, but aside from a whole new engine, no real damage elsewhere apart from that and the tires. So we ended up doing a couple seasons there, and unfortunately that was put short. I had a really bad crash in a testing that ended up taking off the whole side of the car. So that was put the end to that season, and I spent the rest of the winter finding used parts and rebuilding the car again to go and race it. But again, we really turned eyebrows, was able to run at the front even with bad car setups that we just hadn't a chance to figure out, and we slowly got better and better with that. And if you look at the kids I was competing with that year, I say kids, I was kind of young at the time, but it was like a really strong group of drivers there who had won things like Asian Formula 4. Would have been another kid, Jaden, been running Porsche Super Cup in Europe, so supporting Formula One races. Hunter Pickett, who's the son of the Pickett Racing ALMS team as well, and Cabot Bigham, who now runs Rallycross nationally. So a really talented field of about 5 or 6 of us, I think, racing around there, and qualifying separated by hundreds. It was really exciting to go and be part of that, and especially to do it on my these pro teams and kids spending 6 figures to be there, and I'm doing it on a shoestring out the back of the trailer. So we loved that. It was a lot of hassle, a lot of stress, but yeah, definitely whetted my appetite for racing, and from that, and being kind of reasonable at it and being recognised, I did get a few opportunities to delve into some GT racing and endurance racing, where I ran in the Thunderhill 25 in this Porsche. I didn't do that accident damage. That was another driver. That's actually the person who was paying for me to be there. But I was able to still set fastest laps in the wet with the car, the frame bent, running on 3 wheels. So again, it's a fun little challenge. I really enjoy the 25 hours. And those kind of spectacular, I'd say, like feats of endurance, or just it's less so like a sprint race where you're dialing in for the last tenths, but actually challenging you as a human being, and same the whole team. It's a huge team portion of the racing. I really enjoyed that factor where you're against the elements, you're against other people. There's so many variables. So that definitely whetted my appetite for bigger challenges. And yeah, with that, I also got to come back to the UK and run the Works Lotus Evora in the British GTs Championship for a round at Brands Hatch. So that's the other thing I was able to do, and did okay in that again. It was a challenging program, one that was a little short-lived, but a great experience and great to race at the Brands Hatch GP circuit. So started to have a few opportunities come my way, which was really, really nice. And then in 2017, I changed jobs. And I went from one EV manufacturer, Tesla Motors, over to Faraday Future. It was a startup EV manufacturer down in Los Angeles. At that time, they were also sponsoring a Formula E team and had some motorsport aspirations. And basically at that point, because I had an international racing license and I was available, they asked if it was okay if they could put my name on the entry list for Pikes Peak, because they wanted to go and race there. But they'll probably replace me with a Formula E driver, but they needed somebody to go in. Am I okay with that? So that was like, is this a trick or is this a catch? Should I get my hopes up for that or not? But yeah, obviously willingly accepted, and that looked like for a moment that wasn't going to happen. But we were really lucky in that the organizers decided for that year, when they announced the entry list, that the big story was Faraday versus Tesla on the mountain. And that's what they went with their initial press release. And it got millions of dollars of coverage. And Faraday at the time, doing their best to get attention, didn't understand why this did so well and nothing else did. And at that point, our kind of fate was sealed and we had to go. And actually the biggest challenge during that time for me was making sure the program went ahead, because there was a lot of internal resistance from some people. Some people were really for it, some people were really against it. And so that challenge was there, was kind of playing the politics game within the business, and also helping pull the car and the program together to go and run that. The photo on the right here is the team making it for the first test day, and we had issues where the work wouldn't let us take the trucks out to tow the cars. So people went home, grabbed their own trucks and towed the car out themselves to get to the mountain. And we got there with, like, after a 2-day tow, with minutes to spare to make that first test session. It was that fine and that tight, and sleepless nights to get there. So you can see why I'm pretty cheery, and there's a couple of people there looking very tired, and that's because they haven't slept in a couple of days to go racing. So as a manufacturer works effort, it was actually, again, very grassroots in what it was about there. And it was a lot of people with passion, experience on the mountain. Actually, some people had worked on Reese Millen's program previously, but just to get there and go and run this car. Now, the car it wasn't deemed as like a competitive effort. Our end, we were saying, and it was like a testing event for us, where we wanted to push the car to the limits. So we can kind of validate that for production at the time. But it was, as part of that, we did strip the thing out, made it as light as we could, and put some sticky tires on it, and some better brakes, some floating rotors, let's say. But overall, though, it was completely unsuitable for running up the mountain. 2.5 tons, so 5,500 pounds of vehicle with about 970 horsepower, four-wheel drive, and yeah, enough seating for 7 pretty much in that thing. So a very odd race car, but actually one that was remarkably effective on the mountain. The brakes were sized such that I was setting fire to them by the time I was getting to the end of the runs. But it also meant for some kind of spectacularly odd and fast driving. I think I described it as like, it was like driving an elephant on roller skates up the hill, was my best way of describing it. I always like these shots here because they're quite unique, especially this one on the top left with the POV, where you could see we had Charles the Chicken on the left-hand side there, who was our memento for that year for going up the hill. But I always think if you look to the left-hand side of that, away from the road, it's a similar view to what you get from like an aeroplane, right? Flying over the sky, because all you can see is mountains below, snow mountains below. I always thought that was kind of a really good summary of what Pikes Peak is that you're somewhere where you shouldn't be in a race car. Let's put it that way. So yeah, this was really quite a lucky break for me. They never obviously brought the Formula E driver in, and getting there and feeling very at home on the mountain and taking to it very, very quickly, I sort of got the taste for a lot more than even what this car could do. We had a little problem on race day with the car where I essentially had to stop it and turn it off and on again to get it to run, just like a computer. And that was around the brakes were boiling, and essentially there was air in the line. So to get the car to stop, you'd have to pump the brakes up before the next turn. And that activated, essentially, the car thought I had a stuck throttle pedal and turned itself off. So that's what ended up costing us about 30 or 40 seconds on that run. But it still went pretty well nonetheless. And I think the neat thing about the car, and actually you'll see one of the previous speakers here, is at the top we were able to provide refuge in the hailstorms with it for about, I think we had up to about 9 drivers in there. So there weren't many other race vehicles that was able to do an 11-minute run and then also fit 9 people in it. So that was the car's claim to fame. You can see, I think there is James Clay's there, and there was a few others as well, like Rob Holland and people like that in there. So that was a bit of a laugh, a bit of fun when we were up there. Yeah. So we actually had a program at Faraday to go to the mountain with a much faster race car for 2018, and that got to the point of having the entry in, having a chassis manufacturer and the drivetrain designed. But at that point, the Faraday was struggling a little bit for money. We ended up not getting the budget to go and run the race. So the people who had done the 2017 race had appetite to go back. I had appetite to go back and go fast. And I worked on this project for maybe 6 months for it to get stopped. And at that point, I felt like we had so much momentum, I didn't want to stop. So we took it upon ourselves privately to see if we could continue the program, the entry, and bring something competitive to the mountain. We were trying to go electric, and that was unfortunately not feasible. It was going to be very, very expensive for now to a private team with not enough time to go and really raise sponsorship to go and do it. But what we could do was take over Romain Dumas's engine program. Now, he was obviously going there that year with the Volkswagen IDR, and he'd previously been running Normas up there and winning with the Honda K20. So there is a class of car called, it's a sports racer, which is a CN2, FIA CN2 sports racer, which all have this same Honda K20. And so we went around, looked at how we wanted to go and do it and the philosophy of the car, and we selected this Wolf type chassis as the best chassis to go racing with. So we looked around North America to find what would be best, and we found one in Nova Scotia. So we, groups of friends went out to Nova Scotia in the middle of winter to go and check out this car and do a deal, which we were able to do. So we picked up this Wolf, arranged the engine program with Honda HPT to provide us the built engines, and from that we would essentially hot rod this car with a turbo system and fit big sticky tires on it and big wings to go and race the mountain. So this was still all done out of a home garage, a good size one at this point. We've got a bit bigger, so this was like a 4-car garage, plenty of room. But you could see it was mainly kind of hand tools and all this good stuff. We weren't too advanced with it, and that was sort of part of the challenge for us. We wanted to, again, kind of keep it as grassroots as we could, just to see what we could do. So yeah, fabricated the full turbo system, and I developed a kind of an aero kit with a bit of calculation, rule of thumb, and also all the safety systems, so the roll cage and all that good stuff for the mountain. It was a lot of work. It happened in a very short period of time. But it did all come together and actually made for a very competitive race car, as competitive as I'd hoped, which doesn't normally happen that way. So we made it to the mountain, and unfortunately, we'd been running a practice motor, and we swapped out for the race motor come race week, and had actually been put together incorrectly for us. And we spent the whole week chasing that problem, and we found it was a incorrectly assembled exhaust cam gear, and that took us so long to find that we unfortunately missed qualifying, which meant that we would start the race at the back of the field. And at Pikes Peak, that's a big deal because the weather starts to roll in. So the later you go, the more likely it is you're going to see rain. And every year I've been there, the tail end of the field has not able to do a full run because the rain and the thunder comes through and they shorten the race at that point. And unfortunately for 2018, that happened to us. So we were essentially not able to compete that year, which was a huge bummer, because we did get the car together, and for the last practice day, this was against the Volkswagen IDR, which set the hill record, and we also had the European Hillclimb champion over, and his colleague in a sister car in Normas with Nissan V6 turbo engines. We were able to actually go second fastest. So only the IDR was quicker than us on that last practice day with this car. So huge potential in it. But we just weren't able to compete on race day with it. So bittersweet that at least all the tricky stuff we had done had come together, and it wasn't our stuff that really was the issue. But also super frustrating that we weren't able to go and compete. So really mixed feelings. For me, it was a really, really tough day coming back down the hill, but I think the team were just really happy to have the car together and racing and competing. So we knew we weren't done. We knew we hadn't got anywhere near the potential of the car. And we also still had ambitions to go and win the event overall. So it was a fun chapter. It definitely was a uncomfortable time, but one that all the team really enjoyed, and again went back for more. So 2019 comes around. We add a few pieces to the car to improve its performance. We went to a bigger turbocharger. We went for an improved front wing and a better intercooler. They were the main pieces there. So we upped the power from around 400 to 600 horsepower. It was a big jump. And again, the downforce got much better balance with it. So a few headaches and shakedown. We had the rear wing mounts break because we were making so much downforce, and that essentially spun me about 140 mile an hour, and I had one of the longest crashes ever, but luckily didn't hit anything too hard because it was out in the desert. Very glad I did that in the desert, not on the mountain. But overall, we brought together a really, really competitive package, much faster than the year before, especially on racetracks at sea level. And that's one of the important things, that when we went to the mountain itself, the bigger turbocharger becomes harder to spin up and use. So what was really good at sea level didn't work so well on the mountain. And the other thing we've done is stiffen the suspension up. Again, worked very well on the tracks at sea level, but it wasn't so good on the mountain as well. So there were some aspects on the car. Overall, it was a lot quicker, but there were some places where we didn't do such a good job with that. And the weather condition was so challenging that year that we didn't really get any practice runs on the top, and it got really, really bumpy. I'd actually only got one out of the whole month of practice and testing. I only got one run on the top, and that was at a very slow speed because it was my first run up the top, so it was very much a sighter run, nothing at competitive speeds. So we go and do qualifying. We set a fantastic time. That's actually the 4th fastest time ever in the qualifying section. That was only beaten by Romain Dumas in the IDR. The next up would be Sebastian Loeb in the Peugeot, and then Simone Fagioli in his Norma back in 2018 as well. So that was a huge, I think, mark for what we were able to achieve with the car at that point. And the other thing for me that was, a real personal point of pride was that the engine program we'd taken over from Romain Dumas with his private effort, he'd never gone that fast. So actually we had created a package that was a little bit quicker than he was ever able to do. So I think that was just an example of really the achievements we had pulled together with the car. Race day was a little less straightforward. We unfortunately seized an intake valve cam the day after qualifying. We actually had to semi-rebuild the engine, and at that point it was running a little bit poorly. And we had essentially an issue that with not enough valve seat pressure on the exhaust cam or the exhaust valves, and the cam ends up resonating and rattling the exhaust valves, and that was causing us issues with essentially the timing change slapping around and causing us a misfire. And we really started battling with that on race day. And I wasn't really able to get anywhere near the potential of the car. So the run time I did, which I don't recall, was around like a 9:12, was about 40 seconds slower than what was in the car. So we managed to win the event overall, but we were no way near the potential of the car that year. So that was a bittersweet year for me, is knowing that we had so much pace, but we weren't able to realize it, yet still come away with the victory after battling still some reasonable issues that week, which were challenging. And that top right photo there just shows you how bumpy the track is. That at the top is getting kicked up in the air, a couple inches. So that sort of shows you how rough the road is, and B, how stiff the suspension was on the car. So there was some challenges there, and the top section I was essentially driving blind because I'd not run it at pace since the previous year. So big challenges. I think we got through, and I think we did really well. Even make it to the top of Pikes Peak is an achievement in itself, let alone going and winning the race outright. So really, really happy with how that went and what we were able to do. But still, I'm not satisfied with a quick, fast run up there and have my eyes on faster and faster times. So so we, at least we were able to celebrate this year in 2019, enjoy the Parade of Champions, and as a team also celebrate as well. So it was great to get the reward that we'd missed out in 2018 and 2019. I was really happy that the team of friends we had could enjoy that victory. So again, you'll see the captain's hat there. Robbie's still with me, doing these races, and the team is a group of friends. So it's and they're volunteers, and they pay their way to get there and run the event. So it's great to have the trust in me to go and do these events, and them enjoy it as well at the same point, even though it's really hard work. So for 2021, we've got quite a few changes on the car, because my ambition, the team's ambition, is to go for a few things. First of all is the rear-wheel drive record, then the internal combustion record, and then the overall hill record. They're the three things that are in our sights. They're not going to all happen this year, but it is a steady development path on the way to going and achieving that. Because I do think with what we got, I do think we can go and do it. But it's not going to happen in your first year without millions of dollars of budget to go and achieve that. So you can see the evolutions of the car from 2018 to 2019. We're able to pull a good bit of mass out of the car, 20 kilos. We're also able to up the power, almost 50% more power, so a huge jump there. But with it, some response issues, and also add some more downforce to the car, and importantly, improve the balance as well, which I think made the biggest difference. Those two, the extra power and the balance, made quite a big difference in that car to move that runtime potential from like a high 8-minute to a mid 8-minute. But still, I could kind of tell 2019 that, in qualifying, that was about as fast as the car was going to go. And that if we wanted to improve on that, we had to make some pretty big wholesale changes on the car. The reason why we went open wheel with the car originally was to fit bigger tires, and we weren't able to modify the original Wolf bodywork to fit those big tires underneath. But the time I've had back in the UK and the craftsmen around here has allowed me to go and modify that bodywork to be able to go and run closed wheel again. And with that, and with a proper CFD program, we've been able to really jump up the downforce on the car. And that's, again, doing all the calculations, lap time simulations, all that good stuff. I don't want to believe the numbers because they're very, very promising. And at least my kind of gut instinct of where the car will be, how it will handle, is sort of in this runtime potential within the car. So I think the car, having not driven it yet, unfortunately, but within the car, could be something quite special. The power itself, we've gone to a slightly smaller turbo now, so the peak power is a little bit down, but the power under the curve will be up, so the response will be a lot better. And when you look at the runtime, it's actually, you gain a lot more than you lose by losing that little bit of peak power there. But the key factor is we're over double downforce on the car from 2018, and yeah, like 75-80% up on 19, which is huge. That'll make a big difference. You can sort of see some of the CFD program work we've been doing with the car, and that's gone from, we went and we modeled the 2019 car and then added all these bits and pieces and ideas onto the vehicle to see how we could go and improve it. So it was a month, 6 weeks long project in CFD, and then some fabrication afterwards as well to go and get this in here. So a lot of work and effort done with some really talented people who appreciate how to achieve a lot with not much. And that's the spirit we try and have here at TSC. Is it's not about having the fanciest things or the best equipment, but it's being able to be very good with your tools and really understand what you're doing. And I think that's what makes us unique actually at Pikes Peak, is the efficiency of how we go about pulling a program together and the understanding of the car, and also what makes a fast race car for the mountain. So this is how the car was last week, just before we popped it into the container and it shipped over to the States. Unfortunately, COVID is, or just the current, I don't think it's COVID directly, but just the state of shipping is terrible at the moment. And this is shipping out over a month later than it should have. And it's putting us as a very tight squeeze on timing at the other end to get into the mountain. So I suspect we'll make it, but we won't have much practice again, with a lot of untried modifications. But I think even with that, we stand a really good chance just with the experience we've got and a proven platform with just a few modifications to it. So also got a lot of really good partners this year, PWR being a big one, who I've worked with designing a new cooling package with, and that was all done in 3D CAD, and we were able to move the intercooler, essentially, that was hanging off the back of the car into the side pods, so you can see a much cleaner, more efficient aero design that's also put the weight in a good place to really bring performance to the car. So I'm really excited to go and get in it, shake it down, see what it's going to do. And I suspect my neck and arms are going to be very unhappy at that point, because it's going to be a really physical drive. So I think that's it. That's my presentation there. I can skip back a couple and answer any questions anyone might have.
Well, that was tremendous, Robin. Thank you so much. I think we all should thank you for staying up so late. I think those of us on the East Coast may forget that it's 5 hours ahead.
Yeah, sorry, 5 hours it is. Yeah, on the East Coast. Yes, just after one for me.
But how does the performance of this car compare to some of the EVs that seem to be, they may not they may not be ready for endurance racing yet, but
Yeah.
short blasts like this, they seem kind of overwhelming, particularly at
Yeah.
altitude.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question, and one that I think is a little bit misunderstood actually. Um, EVs are really good because of their response and the fact that they're always delivering peak power for most of the time, especially in a race car. You go and look at the peak performance values of the IDR, actually nothing too spectacular.
Oh,
500 kilowatts, you're talking other cars there, claiming well over 1,000 horsepower, all this good stuff. And it's more how the cars go and use it. So the IDR was so fast, it was a very good race car. You could put a gasoline engine in that, and probably a hybrid as well, would be probably faster. And you can see that with the Nürburgring record, with the IDR compared to the 919 EVA. The unique thing about Pikes Peak is how hard it is to access and to test on. And actually the stuff you struggle with in terms of altitude and electric, you don't have to worry about too much. You're not testing that. You have the same car at sea level from a drivetrain point of view as you do on the mountain. And that's the advantage actually, is the fact that you can test as you race from a powertrain point of view. Whereas you can't, there's nowhere else in the world you can really run at 13, 14,000 feet, right? So the electric suffers from, and if you've ever played an RC car, you will have noticed that the car slowly slows down, right? It's best when it's fully charged, and it always loses a little bit, right? As it goes down, the battery voltage drops, and electric race cars are no different. So if you see that compared to a gasoline car, it's actually quite similar to a gasoline car going up a mountain, as it slowly loses power as well. So from a peak power point of view, it's actually quite similar. But what the problem you've got with the internal combustion gasoline stuff is the response. And so you're having to deal with turbos falling up. You're having to deal with a torque curve that's inconsistent, as well as, in terms of, you have a bit more torque low down and then it eases off, and then you shift gear and you have a lot more going on. So it's much harder to extract the absolute potential out of the car. And you have all these complicated systems like anti-lag and things like that to go and achieve those numbers. So when you go and look at average power numbers on a gasoline car, will be way less than their peak numbers, whereas an electric car will be much closer to. And that most of the run time is coming off of the turn. So it's like from 60 mile an hour to 100, 110. And that's where electric's so brutally effective. So, but with that, electric comes with a mass penalty. And I think you could make an equivalent IDR about 200 kilo lighter. And overall, that would make the car a lot quicker. It's just that the marketing budget was such that Volkswagen went and did that, and not with a works effort in an internal combustion point of view. As batteries get better and better, though, the electric really will take the fall. So that's why I'm going at it with internal combustion at the moment. I still think that's capable. I've also looked at doing electric as well, because that's what I do for a day job, is electric powertrains. And both have their merits, both have their drawbacks, and the trick is to have the best tech possible to go and do it. But overall, I think internal combustion would be cheaper to do it right. The other gamble I'm taking is that rear-wheel drive can do it, and that one I'm reasonably confident with, but I'm not 100% sure on. And that comes from is you've got to alter the layout of the car for the rear-wheel drive to work. You actually need quite a rearward mass distribution for that to work, and that's why Porsche 911s go so well up the mountain, because they have the traction, because the rear axles do most of the work. So that's, again, a bit of a philosophy I have, that's maybe a little different to a few. But the key things for me are low weight and the downforce to weight ratio and sticky tires. That's how you get there, being able to use that right. So when you look at production car stuff, batteries, again, are struggling. But again, those cars are really easy to drive, so the driver's able to get more performance out of them. And you don't have to do such bespoke custom builds. And that's why you see the big differences in teams. So I think it's one of those rare places on the mountain where electric and petrol are pretty similar in performance, actually, and it's pick your choice and go racing. Yeah.
Very cool. Do we have any questions for Robin?
Yeah, this is Bjorn.
Hi.
You are really looking forward to this, I can tell. Now,
Yeah.
and I want to, when Sebastian Loeb had after his run
Mhm.
several years ago, right? He was asked if he was coming back the next year, and his answer was, "The feeling is very good, but the risk is very high,"
Mhm.
and he has not returned.
Yeah. Yeah. The
How
question
do you,
is,
yeah, how do you feel about that?
yeah, no, he raises a good point. The reason why he's not back, though, I think is more is as much financial as it is actual. You go and look at something like Romain Dumas, he was coming back year after year as a hobby. And Sebastian Loeb's standards are pretty high, right? And again, Dumas, actually, no, he's back now again. So I think it's putting together like a mega effort like Loeb had. It's going to be hard to do that again. You know, it's tens of millions, or maybe not tens, like maybe single figure millions for that program. And there's no real good reason to almost beat himself. And I think even at this point now, Dumas did something quite different with a very different car. So I think he's pretty happy, as though he hasn't felt too challenged by it. But on the flip side, he is right that you want to minimize the risk you put yourself under. And that's the big thing about Pikes Peak. You can't be flat out balls to the wall, not thinking about what you do. You should only ever drive flat out there once a year. And even then, it's not flat out like you would do on a road course. It's all about risk management. And you do have to come to that decision with these, with going and running these fast cars where if things go wrong, they go really wrong. Risk to reward. Do you want to continue keep having the risk? So that's something that I do think about. When I'm racing, I don't think about it because it's about preparation and understanding what you are and aren't comfortable with. It's knowing yourself and knowing when you're ready to push and when you need to back off, and trying to overall be safe with the car. Have a philosophy around the car to make sure it's drivable and it doesn't surprise you. So yeah, there's a reason why we didn't have much downforce on the car to start with. Most of the downforce was upper body, and as we learn more, we go to more like harder things to dial in with the car. So again, my concern for this year is we've put a lot more downforce on the car without really understanding it. So all this might come off, or you might see a car very similar to 2019 running up the hill, if we can't get that to work and I feel comfortable. So for me, the biggest risk is mechanical failure. I think that's the thing that I'm most focused on. I think other stuff I'm reasonably, I'm good at the driving side of things in that risk management regard. So it's the mechanical failure stuff. So you just got to really keep a good eye on the car and have a good team behind you to make sure you stay safe. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that very, very honest answer there. Because I know it's a difficult subject.
Yeah, no, it is, and it's a tough one with family and loved ones as well, because you do put them through quite a lot with it, and it's sometimes my parents like to come because they're motorsport enthusiasts, but it's also very tough to have them there, especially when there are deaths on the mountain. The cars are a lot safer than the bikes as well, so that's the other thing. If you go and look at, it's not like per unit time, but there's been more deaths to spectators than car drivers in the history of Pikes Peak. So you're more likely to get struck by, or they've had more deaths to lightning strikes than they have, or I don't think a car's hit anyone, than crashing. So cars are pretty safe, but it is quite obvious if things go wrong, it'll be bad. So yeah, just got to manage these things.
Anybody else before we let Robin go to bed? Well, if there are no questions, and I would just like, speaking for everyone, I'd like to thank you for this really fun talk. It's been fabulous. Wish you well on this year.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
We'll be watching.
Yeah, I hope the car gets there. That's the thing I'm most worried about. I might be there drinking beer, not running. But
Well,
yeah, no.
Hopefully your container and you will meet up.
Yes, no, fingers crossed. It'll make for great television because we basically have to put together a race car and then race it in 2 weeks. That's the schedule.
Well, all right.
All right. Well, brilliant. Thank you for having me. And
Robin,
wish you the best. Good luck with your track driving and go fast. Enjoy yourselves.
Yeah, thank you
Thank you
so
very
much, Rob.
much.
Have a good night.
Thanks, Robin. See ya.
Thank you.
Thank you.